Hi, hello everyone. My name is Logan Strenchock, and I'm going to be sharing my experiences as part of a team member at Zsámboki Biokert. Thank you for the introduction, Anna. But to introduce myself, I'm Logan. I've been working in the garden since 2012. I'm also an instructor at Central European University, where I teach in the course Introduction to Agroecology and Organic Gardening Systems. When our university was still in Budapest, we had a roof garden on the roof where I taught some of the practical skills to students. Now we're in Vienna and we have a cooperation with a local urban garden where we take what we talk about in the classroom out to the field with the students. I'm also a member of the Hungarian Agroecology network, and I'm a co-founder of Cargonomia, which is a cargo bicycle logistics center and local food distribution point in Budapest. And with my teammates and trainees we host at Cargonomia, we organize a lot of events in the city, focusing on increasing consciousness, specifically consciousness about agroecology and regenerative agriculture. And we do a lot of activities on the farm as well. What is Zsámboki Biokert? It's a bio-intensive market garden. In total, it's about 3.5 hectares. The vegetable production happens on 1 hectare. We're about 5 to 6 people working in the garden every day of the year throughout all seasons. If you counted all the people who worked with us or worked for us at different parts of the process throughout the week, it's about 10 to 12 people who we employ. We focus on vegetable productions. Our specialty is unique leafy greens throughout all seasons. We do also have fruit trees, which we planted in the first and second year of starting to operate on this land. We have 1 horse and a small flock of sheep, which we use in a small-scale rotational grazing. And as I said, we focus on growing throughout all seasons. We have a large, close to 2,000 square meters of polytunnels, which we're practicing unheated all-season growing in. And we market our products in a traditional market, which is the Budapest Organic Market, and through a weekly food box system. Just to give you an idea of who we are, Emese Katti, Pizza, Levente Csaba. Matthew is the founder of the farm in the center. On the left, you have some of our loyal sheep, and on the right, probably the most famous team member of our garden, Shari, who is our workhorse. It's really important to mention that the farm is a place for integrating new farmers, novice farmers, serious farmers who want to learn about some of our practices. But through the functions of Cargonomia and also through the outreach of the farm, we're typically hosting Hungarian and international trainees for typically 3 to 5 months on the farm, and they really bring a lot of energy to our team, which is super important, especially as we're outside throughout all of the seasons. So this fresh energy is really useful throughout the year. What does our marketing systems look like? So each week we offer weekly food boxes. We don't operate as a CSA. It's a conscious choice. We give the option for people to order each week if they like to or not. We put out a box offer. People decide if they want to order a large box, small box, or put together their own special order. In a good week, we're creating about 120 unique orders, averaging close to around 100. Some people choose to have their order delivered to their home. We bring the boxes into the city with our van. We have 10 distribution points throughout the city, but if someone requests a home delivery, then we do it with cargo bicycle. We operate at the Budapest Organic Market, which has existed for close to 20 years. It happens every Saturday in Budapest. You can only sell there if you're a certified organic producer or a trader selling certified organic products. This market is great that it exists, but it's limited in its ability to support the integration of new farmers. And of course, it's only in Budapest. So if you're not close to Budapest, it's not super convenient to be trying to go there each week and sell. And it's highly competitive because most of the growers who are there have been there for more than 10 years. So as far as a place for new entrants to the market, it's a bit challenged. We work really hard to push the limits and test how much a farm can mean as a social space. So we find it really important to organize a lot of activities on the farm related to transferring knowledge about agroecology and organic gardening in practice, but to really build a food community. So this is just an event from one of our, this is a picture from one of our events throughout the summer, and we're really proud that the farm is much more than the work that goes on in the garden or the food boxes delivered. It's a social space and it's a place of exchange. And we organize many of these types of events throughout the year. Some of them are very practical. Some of them are just about getting together and talking about how happy our customers are with being a part of our food system. Some of the events are just about having a nice time in the beautiful weather in the great setting of the garden. Give you an idea of how we changed our land since we started farming there. This is a picture from just about the time when we first started. The land, it's only about a hectare, the cultivation area, but it was formerly basically managed through monoculture with a tractor, deep plowed at the end of each season, sown with the crop at some point towards the start of the new season. We implemented permanent beds system and an effort to reduce tillage. So this is what our garden would look like in the springtime. We have 12 outdoor parcels, which have 6 beds, which are 80 centimeters wide and 25 meters long. We only grow vegetables in these areas, and we have implemented practices to drastically reduce tillage. We don't call it no tillage, but we call it minimized tillage. Our garden is very colorful and diverse. At any time throughout the year, we probably have 60 different vegetables growing, and throughout the year, up to 100 to 120 different varieties. It's the core of our soil health maintenance. Some of the key principles include this diversity, which is one of our biggest strengths, following a strict crop rotation, and utilizing, even in these small fixed permanent beds, green manures and cover crops throughout the year. Also, we're working really hard, and I find it a core principle if we're talking about implementation of agroecology on the farm, is closing the nutrient cycle, closing the reliance on agricultural inputs. We historically prepared our own compost manually. This is an image of how we did it by forming a mixture of farm manure, the vegetable remains, and straw into windrows and turning it by hand. And this is how we survived producing all of our own compost for about 10 years. It was one of my favorite jobs because it's a nice physically challenging job, but it of course takes time. And we always had pretty decent compost, but it wasn't the quality that we were looking for to support our system. So 1.5 years ago, we implemented the system where we mechanized the turning process. We don't have a compost turner because it's outside of our budget, but we were able to get a 50-year-old tractor, which we don't use to till our soil, but we use it to turn our compost. You can see it's probably a bit hard to tell, but that's a thermometer in the central picture showing that the internal temperature is up to 60 degrees, which is good. It's what we want to remove any weed seeds, to remove any pathogens from the compost. This compost that we produce, since we're really intensively cultivating our fixed permanent beds, we try to return it to the soil as much as possible in collaboration with whether there was a heavier feeder or a lighter feeder that determines the amount of compost we'll return. But this is really rare. I visited a lot of small farms and I see people mostly buying compost, some of it coming from very suspect operations like concentrated animal feedlots. So this is an important step for us in closing our resource loop. Some people might think it's really difficult to incorporate cover crops and green manures in permanent beds, but there's been a lot of research and practice and good examples of this. So we're using cover crops and green manures even in the fixed permanent beds throughout the year when we might have a gap before we can grow something or while we're waiting, and especially before the winter as well. And these work very well even in the small fixed beds. We produce all of our own seedlings. And in the winter, when we start very early, when it's still cold here in Hungary, we also use the benefits of active compost to create heat in a low energy requiring way. So we use the heat of compost in a traditional hotbed to germinate seeds, even in February when it's still freezing outside. And this is also for a biointensive market garden. Most farms, for the sake of efficiency, buy in their own seeds from other locations, but this is something that we buy in their own seedlings. This is something we choose to deal with ourselves because it gives us more control and knowledge over the basic inputs. As much as we can, after we established the basic growing areas on the farm, we started a strategy for trying to incorporate living areas and biodiversity outside of the vegetable areas. So we have a lot of pollinating, attracting strips, as many flowers throughout the farm, especially on the borders of the growing areas, and even sometimes within the growing areas. We're had a blank slate to start. We planted the 120 fruit trees, and we're adding hedgerows. And this is a strip of black poplar, which we eventually want to use because we need wood chips for the compost that we're creating, because wood chips are a good area for helpful bacteria and fungi to colonize, but we don't have our own forest, but perhaps we will in the future. We experimented with the back area of our garden in incorporating a very small scale version of rotational grazing, which we do at the moment with 5 sheep and our horse. This is a test for how we can manage, if we can manage animals, or maybe a few more animals, while making sure to take care of all that we need to do in the vegetable production. So we didn't immediately get 10 sheep or 20 sheep or even cows, but we're thinking about this potentially in the future, because we certainly have the manure requirements for our composting program. We, as I mentioned, try to eliminate tillage as much as possible. We prepare our soil mostly with low impact machines. This is a wheel hoe, which we do most of our soil preparation and a lot of weeding with. We have this machine, which is from the product of a French research project called the Cassine, where you can do fairly accurate soil pre-preparation and even some harvesting with draft animals. Of course, we use the grillinette or broad fork for aeration. You might ask, does all of this work? And this is probably the biggest challenge of it. So we incorporate most of these agricultural principles because of our values and approach to farming and what we want to do with regard to building a healthy ecosystem. Does any of this bring direct financial benefit for us? Well, you may say yes, as far as some customers are also see the value in this, and that's why they buy vegetables from us. But it is super challenging because we're paying our staff to do the work that others may have a shortcut on by using machines or using chemicals. So our financial margins are very slim. So the farm has existed for 10 years, but we're still trying to figure out a way to manage our farm in the most efficient way so that we're more stably financially. And this is a big challenge. And communicating exactly what we're doing is difficult. Some people, well, a lot of people have heard of organic. They likely don't know what exactly it means. But when you start talking about things like reduction of tillage and creating your own compost, the average person doesn't have a lot of knowledge of what the benefits for this are environmentally. And this is something that we work a lot to do in our extra time, which is to educate people and to be advocates as much as the time that it takes to be doing these things on the farm. So this is a big challenge. We've participated in a number of farmer-to-farmer education projects. I won't go into great detail, but if you're looking for handbooks to share with farmers, which explain exactly how you can incorporate agroecology in practice on farms of different scales, I suggest that you look at the Trace website, because we prepared these workbooks specifically for farmers, and they cover all of these different subject areas, but I want to focus on the agroecology in practice section, which has created a brief and in farmers' language handbook for the incorporation of agroecological principles in 3 distinct farming categories: grassland management and animal husbandry, arable farming, and small-scale diversified fruit and vegetable production. They're available in Hungarian, in Czech, in Portuguese, Romanian, Austrian, and of course in English as well. So if you're looking for materials to share with farmers, please consult the traece.eu website. There's also a series, this is what the page of the handbook looks like in Hungarian. We have a number of videos uploaded on our website as well, which are in the language of the local country, and also with English subtitles as well. I'm also participating in a farmer-to-farmer education project, which is focusing on regenerative agriculture here in Hungary. There was a severe drought, and the time when it rains in the season has drastically changed in the last 5 to 10 years, but more severely in the last 2 years. And this is, yes, of course, a big challenge, but it has caused even some of the most conservative conventional farmers to start being interested in adopting in adopting practices which can help them survive these conditions. So we have this regenerative agriculture farmer-to-farmer education project going on now. And it's great to see this interest. I'll just comment briefly on the reality. We're running this project based on receiving European Union financial support. This type of support for these type of projects, unfortunately, doesn't come from the top down within the country. So the educational outreach is surviving on a funding to funding basis. So this is something that we're starting now and we want to run continuously, but we don't have the resources to do it. I know I'm running out of time, so
maybe yeah. Logan, what if we keep this for the discussion? Because I think the coming slides really feed well and probably into the discussion. And we hand over to Maya, and then you pick up some of the points in the discussion. What
sure.
do you think?
Okay.
Would that work, or if you can wrap up in a couple minutes?
I'll wrap up in 2 minutes.
Great. Great.
I just want to mention a few points, and I'll share this presentation if anyone wants to look at it. And what I'm going through here are my main summary points as both a researcher and an active participant interested in the agroecology movement and its adoption. We have a lot of work to do in defining best practices for agroecology based on regional climate conditions, historic agricultural practices, soil types, and available technology. The application of agroecology is not the same in a region to region. The principles are the same, but the way you actually do it is based on your own context, and we need to do a lot better about explaining how to do this based on regional conditions. The best way to come up with a good strategy for working with farmers or giving them good advice is to spend time working with them and observing them before we start suggesting something to them. So I'm really supportive of co-creation of the goals of research and participatory research as opposed to just outside observational research. We need better tools for measuring agroecological transition. This is where your scientific research measuring the actual benefits in water penetration or soil organic matter or ecosystem health are helpful. We do need better numbers. We need better holistic education for farmers, specifically that which is targeting the transition stages, the most vulnerable and risky time. If we're talking about regenerative agriculture, agroecology is in the first few years when we're figuring out how to do this on an already established system. If you read any of the books from Gabe Brown or Nicole Masters, they're telling you this is the crucial stage where someone will either continue to keep doing this forever or immediately abandon any sort of tillage reduction or agroecology practice adoption. It's the first few years where farmers really need stable support. We need more support of grassroots and self-organized and bottom-up networks for agroecology, regenerative agriculture, and farmer-to-farmer education, especially in places like Central Europe, where a lot of these things are not coming from the top down. And I'll stop here. Just one last comment is that I'm personally thoroughly against land-based payments. We need to support farmers for adopting transition. Most farmers, who are some of the best examples of agroecology in practice, have subsidized this transition at their own cost. So we certainly need continuing work on policy reform to not just keep rewarding those who own the most amounts of land in agriculture, but actually those who are doing making the boldest attempts at building healthy ecosystems on their own farms which they manage. Thank you very much.